Okay, today I would like to talk about Moshe Rabbeinu and his life. First of all, it's with much trepidation and with much humility that I even allow myself to talk about him, because he was the greatest prophet of all. He was the greatest teacher of all. He was our Redeemer. He will be our Redeemer in the future. So for me to actually talk about his life.
Would you go more that way so everybody can see you, and then talk louder because they can?
I will try. I will try. I will try.
Very true. I can stand that yesterday evening and you can go back.
Okay. All right. So it's with much trepidation and humility that I even begin to talk a little bit about the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. But it's really not about, it's a little bit about his life, but what we can take for our own selves, what we can take from him, what we can glean from him, from the way he lived his life, from the way he evolved to be who he came to be. He was Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of the day. He is Moshe Rabbeinu. He is present here with us today. Anytime we talk about any of the Tzaddikim, they're always present with us. So he's absolutely present here with us today, and it's with that I ask permission from all of you, and from Hashem and from his own soul that I speak about him and the lessons that he can teach us and he can bring to us. A few principles, though, before I even talk about the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. First, I ask all of you to put aside what you know for just the next half hour. And the ideas that we talk about, take it as a possibility that it might be possible, that it might be true. You can decide for yourselves at the end of lecture if you want to put it on the side, if you want to use it, if you don't want to use it, it's all good. But for the next half hour, 45 minutes, to take it as a possibility of what is being spoken about is actually possible, or it can be true. I'm going to talk about a few principles. Principle number 1. We are at all times, in all modes, always in interaction with the universe, with each other, whether past, present, or future. I know this sounds a little bit impossible, but we are at all times in interaction with each other and with the universe. Right now, we are in interaction with each other. Not only that, we are in interaction with our children, our families, our brothers, sisters, siblings. We are in interaction with the trees. We are giving out carbon dioxide, they are giving us oxygen. We are in interaction with the earth. We are in interaction with the sun and the moon. The sun gives us something, we give off something else. We are at all times, whether sleeping, whether talking, sitting, thinking, not thinking, whatever we are doing, consciously, unconsciously, we are at all times in interaction with each other. Principle number 1. Principle number 2. Any motion is a change and a transition of potential to actual. Any motion. So the fact that we are here today is a motion. The fact that you decided to be here is a motion. is a motion that, again, consciously or unconsciously, will bring you to something of yourself, from potential to actual. To feed on this concept, to feed the next concept, we are all Zelem Elokim. We are all made in the image of Hashem. All of us made in the image of Hashem. But we can read that differently. We can read that all of us, Hashem has an image of us. We are made in the image that Hashem has for us. And a lot of times we are not aware of this image. Now, so we are in the image of Hashem, but we are also in the image that Hashem has for us. The highest image that Hashem has for us. And this image is much grander and much bigger than any of us can even fathom. And every time we make a movement, every time we take a step, every time we are conscious and aware, and every time we do our steps consciously and with awareness, we add to this Zelem Elokim. We add to this image that Hashem has for us, and the image that we are made in the image of Hashem. And that, even though time, and this is the last principle, and then I'll go into what I want to talk about, we evolve within the linear time. We go from birth to 120 years. And in this period of time, we have the opportunity, chances, we have the opportunities, circumstances, possibilities in order to evolve little by little into this greater image that Hashem has for us. And things come up in our life, challenges, obstacles come up in our life. But those challenges and obstacles are not in our way, really. They are the way. They are what gives us the possibility of becoming into this greater image of what Hashem has for us. And this we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's go into the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. We know that he was born on 7th of Adar because of the calculations that they did. And he died on 7th of Adar. When he was born, by the way, he was born 3 months early. And his mother, Yocheved, kept him for the next 3 months. But when he was born with a great light. The room was filled with light. His parents did not call him Moshe. His parents called him Tovia, which comes from good. They say it is the same light that was created the first day that Hashem created the world. It is exactly that light. So we are sitting in that light, actually. 120 years later, with all that he did, with all the teachings, with all the prophecies, with who he became, and the leader that he became, the teacher that he became, on his last day, which is today, he leaves this world with a song, and which we read at the end of Chumash, at the end of the Torah, Hazinu. He leaves this world with a song. And in this song, there is a lot of teachings. So he's born with a great light. He goes through everything that he goes through, he becomes who he becomes. And on this day, he leaves this physical world with a song. Lesson number 1. Each one of us is born with a light of our own. We might not have that light, but each one of us is born with a light of our own. And we do what we do, the challenges that we have, the circumstances that we have. But what we are meant to be and who we are meant to be is to leave this world with our song. Light is potential. Light is just pure potential. Whatever you do with this light is what you do with it. Light can just sit there. Very nice. But light is pure potential. It is up to us. It is up to each and every single one of us to make that light, to bring it, weave it, grow from it, grow with it, infuse it, bring it into this physical earth, bring it into our own physical body, and become who we need to become and leave this world with our song, not with light. Yes, he had great light, but that light had turned into a prophet, a teacher, and a song at the end of the day. So for us to sing that song, to sing our own song, every one of us has our own rhythm. We have our own tune. We have our own melody. And it is for us to sing this melody, bring out this melody, and make it into the song that it needs to become. Moshe Rabbeinu's first encounter with Hashem is at the burning bush. He was 20 when he left Egypt. Now, for a second, I would like us to put ourselves in, for a minute, to think where Moshe was. So he grew up in the palace. He grew up with the sons of Paro. They were his brothers. He grew up knowing most of the languages of the land around him. He grew up with archery and armory and you name it, the games of that time. Horse riding, whatever that was at that time. So he knew it all. He was a prince in Paro's palace. And yet at age 20, because he feels for his brothers, he escapes. How did he know they're his brothers? He grew up in palace until he's 20. How did he know they're actually his brothers? The Jewish people.
Wasn't
You feel.
when they found
When they found what?
the baby blanket? The baby blanket that they found.
Okay.
That was his.
Okay. Okay.
When he realized that that's how it is.
So he found it and he thought his,
The nurse, told him.
the nurse,
He knew from the told the mom.
he knew from beginning.
His mother.
He knew from beginning.
Vet nurse was his mother.
Okay, his wet nurse. Until how old is his wet nurse's mother? Until how old? 20? I'm sorry? He has a revelation at the burning bush. Okay, he has a revelation at the burning bush that his brothers are actually the Jewish people. But before that, when he's 20, he goes, he's on a horse, he's a prince, he's going to see what the slaves are doing. and who are the Jewish people. He sees an Egyptian fighting over a slave, and he strikes him. But then the next day he goes back. Two Jews are now fighting with each other. So, did he know or did he not know?
Did he know that he was Jewish till he was 20 years old? Did he know that?
That's my question to you. Yes, yes. Yes.
I think it's what we call instinct from what we feel, the feeling, what's within us. We all have that
Intuition.
intuition sometimes towards something, and we don't know where it comes from probably.
Okay, so his intuition told him, he just knew,
I think he did it just because of the good of his heart.
he did it off the good of his
Not
heart.
because they were people, his people or not people, just something unfair happened and he had to take care of it.
Right.
But I would think from the circumcision, he would know. If the other Egyptian
He was born circumcised.
He wasn't.
He was born circumcised.
men around him were not.
He was born circumcised. He was born. Okay, so here's a thought. Here's a thought. Look, there are so many layers to this. It's not one layer. It's not one layer. Yes? There are many, many layers. There are many layers to this. Some say he knew. He was told by his mother because she breastfed fed him. Some say actually that Batya told him when he was older that, my dear, you are Jewish. I took you out of water. Some say. Hello.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. I know, that was Moshe Rabbeinu. Be careful what you say. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Some say he was the humanitarian of his time. Because look at the sequence of events. Ladies, I cannot talk over your voices. Look at the sequence of events. He goes, he sees a Mitzri over a Jew, he hits him, he kills him, and the next day he comes back, it's two Jewish people fighting. Now he doesn't know what to do. And then one of them says, who are you? Who made you a taskmaster over us? You're not over us. We have our own taskmaster. So he's afraid, he runs away. He goes to Medine. Who does he see? He sees Yitro's daughters who are at the well and other men are bothering them. And he goes to save them again. So this is the humanitarian of that time. Moshe Rabbeinu, before he is a Jew, before he is anything, he is a humanitarian. And when he goes to, this is age 20. From age 20 to age 80, 60 years, there are many things of, many midrashim that say, what was Moshe Rabbeinu doing? We don't, okay, so there are many different midrashim, but I don't want to go into it. It tells us in Torah that at age 20, when he goes to Medine and he sees the daughters of Paro, when they introduce him, he is called an Ish Mitzri. He is an Egyptian man. That's how he was identified. An Ish Mitzri. An Egyptian man. Fast forward to 60 years later. at the burning bush. What was he doing these 60 years? I'm sure, being that he was a shepherd, and being that he was connected, and being that he had the light that he had, I'm sure his connection with Hashem was very strong to begin with. But he got to know Hashem face to face as a relationship at the burning bush. And at the burning bush, there are many lessons that we can glean from. Hashem asked him to go back. He says, now this is very important, and we have never read it this way or thought about it this way. He goes, go back to your brothers. 5 times he says no. He brings excuses. My mouth, I have lists. I cannot talk. Who am I to go? How are they going to believe me? Who am I going to send me? And for all of these, Hashem very kindly, very nicely has a response for him. But at the end of 5th time, Hashem says, go already. And he says, okay, you know who is going to meet you? Your brother, the Levi, is going to meet you. Why did he have to say your brother, Aaron, the Levi? This is the first time we are introduced to Aaron. This is the first time Moshe is introduced to Aaron. He has never seen his brother before. He has never, at age 80, he has never seen his brother before. So Hashem tells him, I want you to go meet your brother, Aaron, the Levi. And then it's only then that he accepts to go. Why does the Torah, why does Hashem have to tell him, your brother, Aaron, the Levi? He has another brother. His other brother, who is Pharaoh. He has another brother. His brother by non-birth, who is Pharaoh. And he is in a big dilemma. That's why he said no so many times. To go against his brother. He grew up in their palace. He grew up with them. He played with them. He did everything with them. And now he has to go with a brother whom he does not know. He has never seen before, never talked to before. Come together and as a unit go against a brother whom he has known until 20 years of age. The burning bush. Right at the burning bush, Hashem teaches him everything that he needs to know for the rest of the 40 years. That conversation, that interaction is everything that he needs to know for his life, for his prophecy, for his teacher, for all that he needs to do. And right there for us is everything that we can learn from, everything that we need to know for the rest of our lives, and all that we need to come to become in order to sing our song at the end of our lives at age 120. The burning bush, he looks at it. There is fire, but it's not being consumed. There are 2 different interpretations to this. First, Hashem asks him to take off your shoe. The land, the ground that you're standing on is holy. He takes off his, where is he? He's on dirt. He's not standing on marble. He's not standing on on a beautiful landscape. It's not Gan Eden. He's not standing in Gan Eden. He's standing on dirt. There are bushes. There are thorns. And he says, take off your shoes. The ground you're standing on is holy, is sacred. Lesson number 1. The ground that we stand on is holy. Every challenge and every problem and every hardship that any of us might be going through, the ground we stand on is holy. It is not that holiness or sacredness or kedusha. By the way, the letter of this month is Kuf, which stands for kedusha. It is not that kedusha. We find it in Gan Eden. Holiness. Holiness. It is not that we find holiness in Gan Eden. It is not that we find holiness in perfection. As a matter of fact, we find holiness in the dirt, in the ground that is that you can't even see flowers growing. That's where we have the possibility, if we are aware and if we can see, and if we are connected, that's where we can see, that's where we can connect to the holiness. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2. We might be in fire. We might be burning, but we actually never get burned. By Hashem showing Moshe Rabbeinu the fire and the thorn and the bush, he was showing him that you're going to have challenges, you're going to have problems, you're going to have lots of ups and downs, and a lot of fire. Fire burns, fire destroys. But what's inner, what's the core, will never, ever be consumed. Never. There are some rabbis who have turned this around and say it in a different way. And they say that the lesson is that the fire is passion. That we must have passion in our lives to go forward with anything and everything that we want to do, accomplish, and be. If passion is missing, then all we see is the thorn, is the bush. We can't see anything else. But it's and if we believe that the passion will not consume those areas of our lives that have challenges and there are the thorns of our lives, it's okay. Because it's with passion that we need to go forward. So, the ground we stand on, wherever you stand on, wherever we stand on, is holy. We don't need to be there or we don't need to be here. Just here, exactly where we are standing. It is where we can connect to our own kedusha, to the kedusha that Hashem wants to bring for our lives. At some point, we need to make a decision. If we want to be an Ish Mitzri, the man, an Egyptian man. Now, Mitzri is that the person who is bound. The person who is bound to the story, let's say. The person who is bound to the story of their life. The story of Moshe is that he's a prince, that he grew up as a prince, that he could have everything that he could have wanted as a prince. But he had to make a choice to continue to be the prince, even 60 years later, which he still was, by the way. Even 60 years later, or to be an Ish Elokim, the man of God. By the end of his day, he was known as the man of God. So at some point at some juncture in our lives, we need to make a decision and make this transition of how do we want to move forward. Do we want to be an ish mitzri, which means to be attached to our own stories? This is where I come from. This is what happened. So this is the way I need to be. So this is the way it was. So therefore. To come to conclusions because of what it was 80 years ago. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he says okay, and he goes and asks Yitro for permission to leave. Yitro says, sure, go ahead. So he takes his wife and his son, and Sipporah had just given birth. They stop on the way. And Hashem wants to kill Moshe. This man who had so much light, who just had a conversation with Hashem, who is the closest reaction, the closest relationship that any man has ever had with Hashem, Hashem wants to kill him. Because he hadn't circumcised his son on time. Because at that moment he had to make a decision. He's on his way to meet Aaron. He's on his way to become the prophet. He's on his way to become a leader. He's a single man, but on his way to become a leader. But he had to make a decision once and for all. Is he an Ish Mitzri or is he an Ish Elokim? And that circumcision is the covenant that took him from one side to the other. A lot of times in our lives, we come to crossroads where we must make the decision of Ish Mitzri, and you can put any name, Ish whatever, you can put any name next to it. And for us, it took him 80 years. It took him 80 years. We should never, ever, 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 ever say it's too late. We should never, ever, ever, ever say this is how I'm made. We should never, ever, ever, ever say this is my personality and this is how I do it, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. We are always supposed to evolve. And we are always, with awareness and consciousness, we are supposed to become this image that Hashem has of us. Forget about the image that we have of ourselves. At some point, we need to drop, to break the image that we have of ourselves. Ish Mitzri. That's the image that we have of ourselves. At some point, we need to drop that fully and completely and become Ish Elokim. Does that make sense?
Yes. Beautifully said.
Moshe Rabbeinu was a leader. He was not always a leader. He was a prince, and then he goes to Midian. He has a life, he's a shepherd, he's on his own. Nice, quiet. He's with his flocks, he's with his wife. God chooses him to become a leader. Why did he become a leader? What was it in Moshe Rabbeinu's quality that he became the leader that he became? Compassion, humble, humble. What is humble? Down to earth. What does that mean? Humanitarian. What does that mean? What does humble mean? Putting
others before you.
Putting others before you.
Not being too proud.
Not being proud.
Not judgmental.
Non-judgmental.
Not having ego.
Not having ego.
Knowing Hashem is above you
Knowing Hashem is above you.
in all your actions and all the things you say, and you're mindful of that level where you know you're interacting with people not because of your title, your name, how you got there, because you know you're given a place and a guide in walking in someone else's light that you were blessed enough to be given, because that light wasn't guaranteed to you, but you have it, and how you walk in that light every day carefully, cautiously, and mindfully. And that's the reason I believe he was chosen.
Can you say that again?
Like, you want me to?
She said it beautifully. She said it beautifully. I have said this before, but I want to reiterate. I want us to talk a little bit about humility. Humility does not mean Saramun Paine injury, because we will not do what we are meant to do. Humility does not mean that we put ourselves down in order to raise others. You raise up and you raise others with you.
Amen. Amen.
Humility does not mean that you don't become the leader in your own lives. Leadership does not necessarily mean becoming a leader and taking a whole nation out of Egypt. Leadership means to have leadership in our own lives, meaning to have leadership with our own mind, to have leadership with our own conscious thoughts, to have leadership with our own actions, but to do that consciously, and to do it with firmness, but the knowingness that I am walking in Hashem's light, and I'm walking with Hashem's light, that every action, every motion is a change and a possibility for growth. Every motion is a change and a possibility of potential to actual, and that each and every single one of us is here to shine that light and to become that song. We're all a different rhythm. If I don't sing my rhythm, it doesn't mean that somebody else's rhythm will be sung with a greater note. It's a wrong concept we have of humility. If Moshe Rabbeinu, and he did, and Hashem became angry at him, he said, send somebody else, don't send me. In his argument, he said, send somebody else. I don't want to go, don't send me. Hashem became angry at him, and he had the cane in his hand. He said, throw the cane on the floor. The cane becomes a snake. And he said, now pick up the snake. Pick up the snake from the tail. He picks it up and it becomes the cane again. To show him that the head can always easily become the tail. You rely on nothing. You rely on no one. Not even yourself. Humility is when we don't even rely on ourselves. Humility is when we walk with the divine light. And we say that even the head of this cane, which, by the way, they say this is a cane that came from Adam Harishon, and it had all the different names of Hashem. It was a very special, obviously a very special cane. He carried this cane with him all the way till 120 years. But even this cane, don't rely on it. Don't rely on anything. The cane, and that's as a leader. The cane, the head can become a tail, and a tail can become a head. You see that? That's humility. Relying on nothing and relying on no one. Again, when he didn't want to go, he tells him, put your hand in your bosom. He puts his hand and it takes it out. It's leprosy. He said Lashon Hara against himself. And he said Lashon Hara against the people. And that was his punishment for saying Lashon Hara. I'm sorry, Moshe. I'm in no place to say this. But that's Moshe Rabbeinu. We are never, when we are given a task, it's not really our job to say, I can do it or I cannot do it. He said Lashon Hara against himself. And we are not to make decision for others if they will listen or they won't listen. He made a decision and he said, they're not going to listen to me. Well, how do you know? You're not there yet. That's humility. To just take it and do it without bringing reasons or without bringing judgment to it of whether it will work or it won't work. And that's leadership. His connection to month of Adar. Month of Adar is Aleph Dar. Aleph, it's Hashem, it's the oneness. Dar is a dwelling. Adar is making a dwelling for the Aleph, making a dwelling for Hashem. There is no one greater than Moshe Rabbeinu who made a dwelling for him right here on the physical earth. He is the one who brought the Torah down. He is the one who brought down the 613 commandments. And for all of us, it is to make a dwelling for Hashem. It's to make a dwelling for divinity right here on the sacred ground that we stand on, wherever we stand on, whoever we are, whatever we are, with all our challenges, with all our gifts, with everything that we are given and everything that we haven't been given. And that's why we increase in joy every single day in month of Adar. It is the joy of knowingness. It is the joy of connectedness, that we are never alone, that we rely on no one, and we rely on nothing. It is the joy that I, too, can become a Zelem Elokim, and I, too, with every step that I take, can fill up that image, if you would. Add a spark to that image, if you would. If, for example, I'm whatever height I am, I don't want to reveal my height. No, I'm 5'4". But the image that God has of all of us is greater than our own height. It's much greater. Because this image is in interaction with all things at all times. If you are this small, there is only this amount that is in interaction with the universe at all times. But if you grow into this image, if you become this grand image that Hashem has of you, not you of yourself, but Hashem has of you, Zelem Elokim, then the interaction with the universe, the interaction with the people, the interaction with your family, it is also with that divinity. And it's that much grander and it's that much greater. And that's a leader. That is who a leader is. Moshe Rabbeinu taught us leadership. And he taught us that sometimes it takes us years. Sometimes it takes us years in order to get into that space where we need to get to. But that it's possible. That we are supposed to take this light, which is potential, that is who we are, through everything that's a sacred ground, that sacred space to us, to form it, and at some point in our life, go from an Ish Mitzri to an Ish Elokim, to make that decision for ourselves with awareness, with consciousness, to drop those stories. If he had been stuck to the story of Ish Mitzri, he could have never gone into Paro, who was his brother, and say, "Let my people go." He could have never done that, because my people would have meant the Pharaoh people. But at some point he had to make a switch. And my people are the slaves. My people are the ones who have nothing. Yes, I was here at one point, but now I'm here. And you know, the obstacle of Moshe Rabbeinu, if we look at it as an obstacle, he grew up in the palace. The obstacle that was Paro was actually the way for him. It wasn't the obstacle for him, because it's through that all the miracles came to be, that all the openings came to be. Pharaoh, which is a constraint. It's a narrow road. That narrow road, that narrowness, is actually not the obstacle, but it's actually the way, and it's sacred ground. And so, for us in this month of Adar, as Purim is coming up, to increase for joy, meaning to increase in Zelem Elokim. To see what that image looks like for you. To see what that image looks like in your own lives. And it's never, ever, ever for us never to say that, well, it's too late for me now. 80 years old. Moshe is 80 years old. And with vigor and tenacity of a 20-year-old, he went forward as a leader and never stopped for the next 40 years of his life. To know that each one of us at all times, we are in interaction with each other, but we are also in interaction with that which was. Right now, right here. It's not that it was, it's right here. And what will be. Because everything, the Zelem Elokim, that image that we become, can also affect our future. So with that, I love you all. Thank you for being here today. One last thing I want to say, just for today, bask in this light. It's a beautiful light that's present for all of us today. Be conscious of it. Be aware of it. That light will give you the knowingness that you need to know for your life what that Zelem Elokim looks like to you. For you. And don't be humble about it in the way of humility that we have known. Because that means that I put my head down and I don't become that Zelem Elokim. Be humble about it in that it's coming from Hashem. That's humility. To know that there is something greater than yourself for you, and that you will fill into that space. You will move into that space. That's humility. So thank you to all of you.
Amen. Amen.